The Grand Assembly Hall was the largest structure ever built by any species in the known galaxy. It floated at the heart of Station Eternity, a massive space station that had served as the seat of galactic power for 4,000 years. 12 species had ruled from this place. They called themselves the Galactic Council, and they had never known defeat. High Chancellor Voroth stood at the center of the hall. He was tall and thin, with pale blue skin and 4 eyes that never blinked. His species, the Kalani, had founded the council long ago. They believed it was their right to rule. They believed it was their duty to bring order to younger species who did not know their place. Today, Vorath was angry. "The humans have crossed into restricted space again," he said. His voice echoed through the massive chamber. Representatives from 11 other species watched him from their floating platforms. They build colonies where we have forbidden them. They ignore our warnings. They act as if the galaxy belongs to them. A representative from the Dranathi Collective spoke up. "They are a young species. Perhaps we should give them more time to understand our ways." Voroth turned his 4 eyes toward the speaker. "We gave them time. We gave them 50 years. They used that time to build more ships, more colonies, more weapons. They are not learning. They are preparing." The chamber fell silent. Everyone knew what came next. When a species refused to accept the Council's authority, there was only one response. "Send them our terms," Vorath said. "They will surrender 60% of their colonies. They will accept limits on their population. They will allow our observers to live among them and guide their development. If they refuse, we will take what we demand by force." The message was sent across the stars at faster than light speed. It reached Earth in 3 days. It reached the flagship of humanity's United Fleet in 4. Admiral Park Junho read the message in his private quarters aboard the Eternal Dawn. He was 52 years old. With gray hair and calm eyes that had seen many battles, he had served in the fleet for 30 years. He had trained his whole life for this moment. He read the Council's demands twice. Then he contacted Earth. Defense Minister Kim Yuna appeared on his screen. She was younger than Junho, but her eyes held the same calm strength. She had helped build humanity's secret defense network over the past 20 years. She knew every hidden weapon, every secret base, every trap that waited for the Council's forces. "They have made their demands," Junho said. "No," Yuna replied. "The President and I have discussed our response. Project Horizon is ready. Every colony has been prepared. Every ship knows its orders." Junho nodded slowly. "Then we are truly doing this. We have no choice. If we accept their terms, we become slaves. Our children and their children will live under their control forever. We cannot allow that. The Council has conquered hundreds of species. They have never lost a war." Yuna smiled. It was a cold smile, full of secrets. "They have never fought humans. They do not know what we have built. They do not know what we are capable of. They see us as children playing with toys. They will learn the truth soon enough." Junho thought about his own children. His daughter was 16. His son was 12. He thought about the future they would have if humanity surrendered. He thought about the future they could have if humanity stood strong. "What message should I send?" he asked, a simple one. "Let them know we are not afraid. Let them know we have been waiting for them." Junho ended the call. He sat alone in his quarters for a long time. Outside his window, the stars burned in the endless dark. Somewhere out there, the Council's war fleets were gathering. Somewhere out there, the future of humanity was being decided. He wrote his message. It was only 6 words. He sent it on every frequency, to every corner of the galaxy where anyone might be listening. "We are ready for you." On Station Eternity, the Council received humanity's response. Vorath read it and laughed. "Ready for us?" He said, "They have 300 ships. We have 8,000. They have colonies on 40 worlds. We control 2,000 systems. They think they are ready?" The other representatives joined his laughter. They had seen this before. Young species always believed they were special. They always believed they could resist. They always learned the truth in the end. Send the Kalani war fleet to their nearest colony, Vorath ordered. 800 ships should be enough. Destroy their defenses. Capture their people. Show them what happens when someone defies the council. The orders went out. The war fleet began to move. On Earth, Una watched the enemy ships on her tactical display. 800 vessels, each one larger than anything humanity had ever built. They moved through space like a swarm of metal predators. Hungry for conquest, she was not afraid. Humanity had known about the Council for over 100 years. In 2089, a probe from a Council survey ship had crashed on Mars. Earth scientists had recovered it in secret. They had studied its technology. They had decoded its databanks. They had learned everything about the galaxy's rulers, and they had begun to prepare. Every advance in human technology since then had been designed with one purpose: survival. Their ships were faster than they appeared. Their weapons were stronger than anyone knew. Their colonies were not soft targets, but hidden fortresses. Waiting for the enemy to come, Una sent a message to Proxima Colony. Humanity's oldest settlement beyond Earth, Governor Lee Min-ho received it and smiled. They are coming, Una told him. 800 ships. They expect an easy victory. They will not find one, Min-ho replied. We are ready. Let them come. Let them see what humans can do when our backs are against the wall. Across human space, millions of people looked up at the stars. They knew war was coming. They knew the enemy was powerful. But they also knew something the Council did not understand. Humans had never been conquered. Humans had never surrendered. Throughout their history, they had faced impossible enemies and found ways to win. They had survived ice ages and plagues and wars that nearly destroyed their world. They had clawed their way from caves to the stars through nothing but determination and will. The Council thought they were bringing order to a young species. They were wrong. They were walking into a trap that had been built over a century by a species that had been watching them, learning them, and waiting for this exact moment. The galaxy was about to learn what humanity really was. The Kalani war fleet entered the Proxima system like a dark cloud spreading across the sky. 800 ships moved in perfect formation. Their weapons were charged. Their soldiers were ready. Fleet Commander Vexal stood on the bridge of his flagship and looked at the small blue world below. Proxima Colony was humanity's first settlement beyond their home system. 4 million people lived there. They had built cities and farms and factories. They had raised families and built communities. To the Kalani, they were nothing but targets. Vexal had conquered 17 species in his long career. He had burned worlds and broken armies. He had never failed. He expected this mission to be simple. Begin orbital bombardment, he ordered. Target their military installations first, then their power plants, then their communication towers. Leave their cities intact. We want prisoners, not corpses. The Kalani ships opened fire. Beams of hot plasma fell from the sky like rain. They struck mountains and valleys and coastlines. Explosions bloomed across the planet's surface. On the ground, Governor Lee Min-ho watched the attack from his command bunker, 3 kilometers beneath the surface. The bunker was built into solid rock, shielded by layers of metal and energy fields. The Kalani weapons could not reach him here. He was not watching the bombardment with fear. He was watching it with patience. How long until they land ground forces? He asked. Lieutenant Commander Beak Hannah checked her tactical display. She was 34 years old, with short black hair and eyes that missed nothing. She had trained for this battle her entire military career. They're launching dropships now, she said. 40,000 soldiers. They are heading for the capital city, Min-ho nodded. And the evacuation? Complete. All civilians are in the underground shelters. The cities are empty. Good, Min-ho turned to face his staff. Begin Protocol Dawn. Across the planet, hidden systems came to life. What looked like ordinary buildings were actually armored bunkers. What looked like peaceful parks were actually weapons platforms covered by false ground. What looked like a helpless colony was actually a trap built over decades. Waiting for this exact moment, The colony dropships landed in the capital city. Soldiers poured out, weapons ready. They expected screaming civilians and weak defenders. They found empty streets and silence. Vexal watched from orbit. Something felt wrong. Where are the humans? He demanded. Where are their defense forces? Before anyone could answer, the mountains came alive. Hidden doors opened in the rock. Massive railgun cannons emerged, weapons that fired metal projectiles at incredible speed. They began shooting at the Kalani fleet. The first ship exploded before anyone understood what was happening. Then another. Then another. At the same time, thousands of drones rose from underground hangars across the planet. They were small and fast, each one carrying explosive charges. They swarmed toward the dropships and ground forces like angry insects. The Kalani soldiers had never seen anything like this. Their shields see? Owled stopped plasma beams, but not metal projectiles, moving faster than their sensors could track. Their armor could resist energy weapons, but not swarms of drones attacking from every direction at once. Hannah watched the battle on her display and gave orders with calm precision. Squad 7. Move through tunnel network to position Delta. Squad 12. Hold the eastern approach. Artillery units, target their command vehicles. Human soldiers emerged from hidden tunnels behind the Kalani lines. They wore powered exoskeletons that made them faster and stronger than any normal human. Their weapons were linked directly to their brains, allowing them to aim and fire with perfect accuracy. They struck the enemy from behind, from the sides, from angles the Kalani never expected. The battle turned into chaos. The Kalani were trained to fight in formation, to advance in orderly lines, to crush enemies with superior numbers. But there were no lines here. There were no formations. There were only humans appearing from nowhere, striking hard and disappearing again. Vexal ordered a retreat. His fleet had lost 200 ships to the railgun cannons. His ground forces had lost half their numbers in less than 3 hours. This was not possible. This should not be happening. Fall back, he screamed. All ships fall back to the jump point. The Kalani fleet fled. They left behind burning wreckage and dead soldiers and a planet they had failed to conquer. Hannah stood at the entrance of a tunnel and watched the enemy ships disappear into the stars. Her uniform was dirty and torn. She had fought alongside her soldiers in the tunnels, close enough to see the fear in Kalani eyes when they realized they were losing. She felt no joy in the victory. She felt only relief that her people had survived. Minho joined her. He looked tired but satisfied. Casualties. He asked, 212 dead. 400 wounded. We saved everyone else. Minho closed his eyes for a moment. 212 families would receive terrible news today. 212 lives ended too soon. But without the preparations, without the traps and tunnels and hidden weapons, millions would have died instead. The Council will send more ships, Hannah said. I know. But now they know the truth. Now they know we can fight back. On Station Eternity, the Council received news of the defeat in shocked silence. Vorath read the reports 3 times, unable to believe what he was seeing. 200 ships destroyed, 40,000 soldiers dead or captured. A complete and total failure. This is impossible, he said. The humans are primitives. They should not have weapons like this. They should not be able to fight like this. No. The representative from the Dranathi Collective spoke carefully. Perhaps we underestimated them. Perhaps we should reconsider our approach. Reconsider? Vorath's 4 eyes blazed with anger. We do not reconsider. We do not negotiate with lesser species. We crush them until they submit. Send more ships. Send all our ships if we have to. I want every human world burned to ash. But some of the other representatives exchanged worried glances. For the first time in 4,000 years, the Council had been defeated. For the first time, a young species had stood against them and won. Across the galaxy, other species heard the news. The Valori, who had been enslaved by the Council for 300 years, whispered in secret meeting places. The Mindari, who had always resented Council rule, began to wonder if change was possible on Earth. Defense Minister Yuna received Hannah's report and allowed herself a small smile. Phase 1 complete, she said to Admiral Junho through their quantum link. They know we can defend ourselves. Now we show them we can attack. Junho nodded. His fleet was already moving into position. Hundreds of ships, each one faster and deadlier than the Council knew, were preparing to jump into enemy space. Operation Starfall begins in 12 hours, said. The Council thought they were fighting a primitive species defending their homes. They were wrong. They were fighting a species that had been planning this war for 100 years, and was now ready to take the battle to the enemy's doorstep. The galaxy would never be the same. The video spread across the galaxy like fire. Every species with access to the communication networks watched it. Every world that had ever been conquered by the Council saw the images of Kalani ships burning, of their soldiers retreating, of a young species standing strong against impossible odds. On 100 worlds, slaves looked up from their work and dared to hope. The Valori had served the Council for 300 years. Their homeworld had been conquered when their ancestors were still young. They had been forced to build ships for their masters, to mine resources for their masters, to fight wars for their masters. They had forgotten what freedom felt like, but they had not forgotten how to dream in a hidden meeting place. Beneath a Valori mining colony, a group of rebels watched the video of humanity's victory. Their leader was an old female named Kirith. She had spent 60 years planning for a moment like this. The Council is not invincible, she said to her followers. The humans have shown us the truth. If they can resist, so can we. Across the galaxy, similar meetings were happening. Species that had been beaten down for centuries began to whisper about rebellion. The Council had ruled through fear. Now that fear was breaking. Admiral Junho stood on the bridge of the Eternal Dawn and watched his fleet prepare for battle. 23 strike groups were spread across human space, each one ready to jump into enemy territory. Operation Starfall was about to begin. Fleet strategist Choi Soo-jin stood beside him. She was the one who had planned this attack. She had spent 20 years studying the Council's weaknesses, mapping their supply lines, identifying their most important targets. Our intelligence is good, she said. The Council has grown lazy over the centuries. They never expected anyone to attack them. Their defenses are designed to control conquered species, not to fight an actual war. And our targets: shipyards, communication relays, supply depots. We hit them all at once. We blind them, cripple their ability to build new ships, and cut off their fleets from their bases. Junho nodded. It was a bold plan. It was also their only chance. The Council had thousands of ships. Humanity had hundreds. They could not win a long war of numbers. They had to win quickly, decisively, before the Council could bring its full strength to bear. All ships report ready, an officer announced. Junho took a deep breath. In a few moments, humanity would go from defending their homes to attacking the heart of an empire that had ruled for 4,000 years. There would be no turning back. Begin Operation Starfall, he ordered. Across human space, hundreds of ships activated their jump drives. They disappeared in flashes of light, traveling faster than light itself, merging in enemy territory seconds later. The Council was not ready. The first strike hit a Kalani shipyard orbiting a gas giant. Captain Han Tai-ho led his destroyer, the Silent Thunder, through the enemy defenses. His crew was young, most of them in their 20s, but they fought with skill and courage that made him proud. Target their construction docks, Tai-ho ordered. Take out their ability to build new ships. The Silent Thunder's weapons tore through the shipyard's defenses. Explosions bloomed in the darkness. Half-built warships broke apart and tumbled into the gas giant's atmosphere. In less than an hour, a facility that had produced warships for 500 years was nothing but burning wreckage. Similar attacks, happened across Council space. Communication relays went silent. Supply depots vanished in nuclear fire. Military bases that had never been attacked, in their entire existence, found themselves under assault by ships that moved faster and hit harder than anything they had ever faced. The Council's military network fell into chaos. Fleet commanders could not contact their superiors. Supply ships could not find their destinations. The great machine that had conquered hundreds of species began to break down. On Station Eternity, Vorath screamed at his advisors. How is this happening? How do they know where to attack? How do they know our weaknesses? No one had an answer. No one wanted to admit the truth. Humanity had been watching them for over a century. Every ship, every base, every secret had been studied and mapped. The Council had thought they were hunting a young and ignorant species. They had not realized they were the ones being hunted. Defense Minister Yuna addressed the people of Earth from the steps of the United Nations building. The sun was setting behind her, painting the sky in shades of red and gold. For over 100 years, we have kept a secret, she said. In 2089, we discovered that we were not alone in the universe. We learned that a great empire ruled the stars, an empire that conquered and enslaved every species it encountered. We knew that one day they would come for us. She paused, letting her words sink in. We did not despair. We did not give up. We prepared. Every advancement in our technology, every expansion of our colonies, every ship we built was designed for this moment. We watched our enemy. We learned their strengths and their weaknesses. We built traps and weapons and defenses that they never imagined. Around the world, billions of people watched her speech. Some were afraid. Some were angry. But many felt something they had not expected: pride. The Council gave us a choice: submit or die. We choose neither. We choose to fight. We choose to show the galaxy that freedom is worth any price. And we call upon all species who have suffered under Council rule to join us. The age of tyranny is ending. The age of freedom is beginning. On the Valori mining colony, Kirith watched the speech with tears in her eyes. Then she gave the order her people had waited 300 years to hear. Begin the uprising. Across Valori space, slaves turned on their masters. They seized weapons from armories. They took control of ships and stations. They sent a message to humanity. We stand with you. The Mindaria species that had remained neutral for centuries made their own choice. They opened their borders to human ships. They shared their star maps and intelligence. They had always hated the Council. Now they had allies strong enough to help them fight. Vorath watched his empire begin to crumble. The Valori were rebelling. The Mindari were helping the enemy. Other species were questioning Council authority. Everything he had built, everything his ancestors had built, was falling apart. This cannot be happening, he whispered. But it was happening. The Council had ruled through fear for 4,000 years. Now a new emotion was spreading across the galaxy. Hope. And hope, once kindled, was very hard to extinguish. Admiral Junho received reports of the uprising with quiet satisfaction. The plan was working. They were not just fighting a war. They were starting a revolution, but he knew the hardest battles were still ahead. Vorath would not surrender easily. The Council still had thousands of ships, millions of soldiers. The war was far from over. What is our next move? Sujin asked. JUNHO looked at the star map, at the vast empire they were trying to bring down. We keep pushing. We keep fighting. We give the galaxy hope until hope becomes victory. Outside, the stars burned in the endless dark, and across the galaxy, species that had been silent for centuries began to find their voices again. The Galactic Council was breaking apart. For 4,000 years, 12 species had ruled together, united by power and greed and the belief that they were superior to everyone else. Now that unity was crumbling. The Dranathi had lost half their fleet in failed attacks on human colonies. The Siloxy had seen 3 of their core worlds go dark, their communication networks destroyed by human strikes. The smaller Council species were beginning to ask a dangerous question. Was this war worth fighting? High Chancellor Vorath called an emergency session of the Grand Assembly. The floating platforms were filled with representatives who looked tired and afraid. The confident rulers of a month ago now seemed like frightened creatures watching their world collapse. We must commit all our remaining forces to a final assault, Vorath demanded. Every ship, every soldier, we strike Earth itself. We cut off the head of this rebellion. The Dranathi representative shook his head. We have tried direct assaults. They fail. The humans fight like no species we have ever encountered. They do not break. They do not run. They adapt and overcome. Perhaps it is time to negotiate. Negotiate. Vorith's 4 eyes blazed with fury. We do not negotiate with lesser species. Lesser? The Psyloxy representative let out a bitter laugh. They have destroyed our shipyards. They have crippled our fleets. They have inspired rebellions across our territories. What part of that sounds lesser to you? The argument grew heated. Representatives shouted at each other. Accusations flew back and forth. The council that had ruled with one voice for millennia was tearing itself apart, far from Station Eternity. On a captured council communication station, Ambassador Ogiwan prepared to broadcast humanity's terms to the galaxy. She was 45 years old, with calm eyes and a steady voice. She had spent her career as a diplomat, building relationships with other species in secret, preparing for this moment. Are we ready? She asked her staff. Yes, Ambassador. All frequencies are open. Everyone in the galaxy who wants to listen will hear you. Giwan nodded and faced the camera. Her message was being broadcast not just to the council, but to every enslaved species. Every conquered world, every being who had ever dreamed of freedom. My name is Ojuwan, and I speak for humanity. We did not start this war. The council demanded our submission, and we refused. They attacked our colonies, and we defended ourselves. They expected us to break, and we stood strong. She paused, letting her words travel across the stars. But we are not fighting for conquest. We are not fighting to replace one empire with another. We are fighting for something greater, the right of every species to choose their own path. The right to be free, as you outlined humanity's terms. The council would dissolve its forced treaties. Enslaved species would be liberated. All beings would have the right to govern themselves. There would be no punishment, no revenge. Just freedom. We offer peace, she concluded. But if the council refuses, we will continue fighting until freedom is won. The choice is yours. On Station Eternity, Vorith watched the broadcast with growing rage. This human female was offering his subjects a choice. She was treating the council's conquered species as equals. She was undermining everything the Kalani had built. Destroy that station, he ordered. Now, kill her and everyone with her. The Kalani personal fleet, 300 of Vorith's most loyal ships, jumped toward the captured station. They were the best ships the Kalani had, crewed by fanatics who would die for their High Chancellor. But Admiral Junho was waiting for them. The human fleet emerged from hiding behind a nearby moon. 400 ships, including the Eternal Dawn, moved to intercept the Kalani force. It was the largest battle of the war so far. All ships engage, Junho ordered. The two fleets crashed together in a storm of fire and metal. Ships exploded. Debris filled the space between the stars. Pilots on both sides died in flashes of light, their lives ending in seconds. Commander Yoon Yoonji led the fighter squadrons. She was 31 years old, and she had been flying since she was 17. Her squadron, the Black Hawks, was known throughout the fleet for their skill and bravery. Break through their lines, she ordered her pilots. Get to their flagship. If we take out Vorith's command ship, we take out their coordination. The Black Hawks dove into the heart of the Kalani formation. Enemy fighters swarmed around them. Weapons fire filled every direction. Yoonji watched her squadron shrink, pilot after pilot disappearing in silent explosions. But they kept pushing forward. Squad leader, we've lost 60%, her wingman reported. His voice was tight with fear and determination. I know. Keep going. We're almost there. The Blackhawks broke through the final line of defenders. Voreth's flagship, the Eternal Dominion, loomed before them. It was the largest ship in the Kalani fleet, a symbol of their power and pride. Yoonji targeted the ship's engine section. All remaining Hawks, focus fire on my target. Everything you have. The surviving fighters unleashed their weapons. Missiles and energy beams struck the flagship's engines. Explosions rippled across its hull. The great ship shuddered and began to drift, its power failing. Junho saw his opportunity. All capital ships. Target the Eternal Dominion. Finish it. Human warships concentrated their fire on the crippled flagship. Voreth's pride and joy, the symbol of Kalani dominance, broke apart under the assault. Escape pods launched into the darkness as the crew abandoned ship. With their flagship destroyed, the Kalani fleet lost its coordination. Ships began to retreat. Some surrendered. The battle was won. Junho ordered his communications officer to broadcast the battle footage across the galaxy. Let everyone see. Let them see that the Council's greatest fleet had been defeated. Let them see that hope was not just a dream. On worlds across the galaxy, beings watched the battle in amazement. The Dranathis saw their former allies defeated and began secret negotiations with human diplomats. The Siloxy Confederation's population demanded that their leaders make peace. Smaller species that had served the Council for centuries began to question their loyalty. Ambassador Guan received dozens of messages from Council members seeking private discussions. The Empire was fracturing. Species that had once been enemies were now looking for a way out. Back on Station Eternity, Vorath received news of the defeat in his private chambers. His flagship was gone. His fleet was scattered. His coalition was abandoning him. He sat alone in the darkness and tried to understand how this had happened. The humans were supposed to be primitive. They were supposed to break. They were supposed to be another easy conquest in a long line of easy conquests. Instead, they had broken his fleet. They had inspired rebellions. They had turned his allies against him. They had done what no species had ever done in 4,000 years. They had made the Council afraid. Voreth clenched his four fists. He was not finished yet. He still had ships. He still had soldiers. He would burn every human world to ash before he surrendered. But deep down, in a place he would never admit existed, he was beginning to understand something that terrified him. He was going to lose. The galaxy was changing. The age of Council rule was ending, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. On the eternal dawn, Junho stood at his window and watched the stars. They had won an important battle, but the war was not over. Voreth was still dangerous. Desperate enemies often did the most damage. What now? Sujin asked, joining him. We finish this, Junho replied. We end the Council. We free the galaxy. And we build something better. It sounded simple. They both knew it would be anything but. But they had come too far to turn back now. The dream of freedom was within reach. They just had to survive long enough to grab it. 6 months had passed since humanity sent their warning to the galaxy. 6 months of battles and diplomacy and sacrifice. 6 months that changed everything. The war did not end with a single great battle. It ended with a cascade of surrenders, like dominoes falling one after another. The Dranathi Collective was the first to defect, joining the growing human alliance and bringing their remaining fleet with them. The Siloxy Confederation signed an independent peace treaty 3 weeks later. The smaller council species followed one by one, choosing freedom over loyalty to a dying empire. The Valori, who had risen in rebellion at humanity's call, declared themselves eternal allies of Earth. Their leader, Kirith, traveled to Earth herself to shake hands with Defense Minister Kim Yuna. 2 species that had never met before the war now stood together as friends. Hi, Chancellor. Voreth watched his empire crumble from the Kalani homeworld. His coalition had abandoned him. His fleets were scattered or destroyed. His dreams of conquest had turned to ash, but he refused to surrender. We still have ships, he told his remaining generals. We still have soldiers. We will fight to the last. We will make them pay for every system they take. His generals obeyed, but their eyes held no hope. They knew the war was lost. They were simply waiting for the end. Admiral Junho brought his fleet to the Kalani homeworld. He did not come to destroy. He came to offer the same terms humanity had offered from the beginning: freedom and equality for all species. No punishment, no revenge, just peace. Vorith's response was to launch every ship he had left. The final battle of the war lasted 2 days. Kalani ships fought with desperate fury, knowing they had nothing left to lose. Human ships answered with disciplined precision, minimizing casualties on both sides when possible. It was not a massacre. It was a careful, methodical end to an era. When the last Kalani warship surrendered, Jinho sent landing forces to the planet's surface. Their mission was to capture Vorath and end the war once and for all. Sergeant Shin Naon was among the first Marines to breach the planetary defense headquarters. She was 28 years old, from a small town in Korea. She had joined the military because she wanted to protect her family. She had never imagined she would be part of the force that ended a 4,000-year empire. Her squad moved through the empty corridors of Vorith's command bunker. The Kalani guards had surrendered or fled. The great fortress that had commanded the conquest of hundreds of worlds was now silent and abandoned. They found Vorith in his private chamber. He was alone, sitting in darkness, surrounded by screens that showed the fall of everything he had built. Ships surrendering, worlds declaring independence, species celebrating their freedom, his life's work and the work of his ancestors. Crumbling to nothing, Na Young kept her weapon trained on him, but she felt no hatred. She felt something closer to pity. This ancient being had spent his entire existence believing he was superior to everyone else. Now he was learning the truth. "It is over," she said. "You need to come with us." Vorath did not look at her. His 4 eyes remained fixed on the screens. "How did you do it?" he asked. His voice was quiet, broken. "You are so young. Your species has been in space for less than 4 centuries. We ruled for 4,000 years. How did you defeat us?" Naon thought about the question. She thought about her family, about her home, about the people she had fought beside. "Because we never believed we were weak," she said. "Because we never accepted that we were meant to serve. We looked at the stars, and we saw a future worth fighting for. We looked at your empire, and we refused to be afraid." Vorath finally turned to face her. His 4 eyes studied her, this small human who had invaded his world and ended his reign. "You will become what we were," he said. "Give it time. You will conquer. You will enslave. Power corrupts all species eventually." Nahon shook her head. "Maybe. Maybe not. But that is our choice to make. Not yours. Not anymore." She took Vorath into custody. The war was over. 1 year later, Admiral Gunho stood before the newly formed Galactic Assembly. The Grand Assembly Hall on Station Eternity had been transformed. Where 12 species had once ruled, now representatives from over 100 worlds gathered as equals. No one sat higher than anyone else. No one commanded. They discussed. They voted. They built something new together. Ambassador Oguan read the founding charter of the Assembly. It was a simple document, written in clear language that any species could understand. All beings are equal. All species have the right to govern themselves. No world will be conquered. No people will be enslaved. Disagreements will be solved through discussion, not war. When one species is threatened, all species will stand together. The representatives voted. The charter passed unanimously. The old era was officially over. The new era had begun. John did not stay for the celebration. He returned to the eternal dawn, to the bridge where he had commanded so many battles. He stood at the window and looked at the stars. Yuna's voice came through the communication system. She was still on Earth, still serving as defense minister, still watching over humanity's future. "We did it," she said. "We actually did it." "Yes," Junho replied. "But now comes the hard part. Building something that lasts. Making sure we do not become what we destroyed. Do you think we can?" Junho thought about all the humans he had served with. Sujin, who had planned their strategy. Taiho, who had led attacks on enemy shipyards. Yunji, who had broken through enemy lines with her squadron. Nehun, who had ended the war with quiet words instead of violence. Minho and Hannah, who had defended Proxima Colony against impossible odds. He thought about the millions who had fought and sacrificed so that their children could live free. "I think we have a chance," he said, "and that is all we ever asked for." On Earth, Una ended the call and stepped outside. The sun was rising over the mountains, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. Children were walking to school. Families were starting their day. Life was continuing, as it always did, but everything had changed. Humanity was no longer alone in the universe. They were part of something bigger now, a community of free species working together to build a better future. Una allowed herself a rare smile. 100 years ago, humanity had discovered they were not alone. They had learned about the Council's power and cruelty. They could have despaired. They could have given up. Instead, they had prepared. They had built, they had waited. And when the Council came for them, they had been ready. The galaxy had given humanity a choice: submit or die. Humanity had chosen neither. They had chosen to fight. They had chosen to win. They had chosen to offer freedom to everyone who wanted it. Now the galaxy was free. Not because humanity had conquered it, but because they had shown everyone that freedom was possible, that tyranny could be defeated. That hope was not just a dream. Across the stars, beings who had been slaves for centuries were building new lives. Species that had been enemies were becoming friends. The old order was gone, and something better was rising in its place. It would not be perfect. There would be problems and conflicts and challenges. But there would also be choices. Every species could now decide their own future. Every being could now dream their own dreams. Humanity had given the galaxy one warning: we are ready for you. The galaxy had not listened now. Finally, the galaxy understood. Humans were never the prey. They were never meant to be conquered. They were the species that looked at impossible odds and found a way to win. They were the species that refused to kneel, and now, because of them, no one would ever have to kneel again.